All right, everyone, welcome into episode 181 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here on May the 19th, here in 2025. I'm Nick Kolev, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, where it's not storming right now. That'll change soon, probably. And joining me from a much calmer Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gus Almazelli. Gus, how are you doing? In a country that doesn't have tornadoes.
Oh yeah, doesn't have tornadoes, snowstorms, but it's so funny. People tend to say that Brazil's perfect. It's the Brazilians that ruin Brazil, but nevertheless, it's like a really nice weather recently. Not that cold, not that hot, so great time here in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I do just want to dedicate this episode to all of those who have been affected by the tornadoes over the past couple of days, especially up in London, Kentucky, over in Kansas last night, St. Louis. I mean, it's been a rough stretch, but we're all thinking about you. But definitely, we're here to talk about some sports tonight. Got a lot of playoffs going on. We're approaching Memorial Day weekend this weekend, which means we have a lot of big racing coming up. We have Champions League, I believe, this week as well, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, that's true. U.S. Open Cup too.
Yep, Open Cup. We have all the different types of things. But let's start off with the NBA playoffs tonight. When we last did our pod on Friday, we already knew the Knicks Pacers were going to play against each other, but we were awaiting the Game 7 of Thunder and the Nuggets, and this wasn't really a competition at all. This was an absolute beatdown by the Denver Nuggets, or by the Oklahoma City Thunder of the Denver Nuggets. And OKC will be taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Final. And for the Denver Nuggets, it just feels like, they did get one title with Jokic, but it feels like that's probably as much as they're going to get with this current roster construction, because Jamal Murray is not it's just not consistent enough. The rest of this roster is not consistent enough. And additionally, after firing Michael Malone, they're going to have to figure out how to come back around, I think, to rebuilding that identity. And it just feels like, as long as you have Jokic, you're going to be a really, really good team. But you're just not going to win another title. And let's be real, right? When they won the title, they had to play the 8-seeded Miami Heat. And I know Miami had Jimmy Butler, who was in one of those magical playoff runs, but still, I'm not. I think Denver has peaked.
And I'm gonna go even like a big, a broader point. Do you think Denver and Milwaukee kind of ran into the same pattern, like big international superstars like Jokic and Giannis, a decent supporting cast, but they just didn't have enough depth to keep a dynasty, because both were a solo title for now. They're still.
Well, if you think about it, like, we're going to have our 7th different champion in 7 years this year. So it may be safe to say that the era of the dynasty is dead.
Totally, 100%. Not only the dynasty, the superstars. Like of all the 14 remain of the 4 remaining teams, there's not a like that superstar, that undeniable player.
I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a superstar.
No. But he's a
superstar.
But those are, I feel like they're are starting to making. They're not like established superstars. They're
was the leader of scoring though this year. He's been a superstar now for about 2 to 3 years. Anthony Edwards has been a superstar for about 2 to 3 years at this point. Halliburton, I guess in the greater conscience, hasn't been there, but Halliburton was on the Olympic team last year and should have gotten playing time.
Let me rephrase that. So, but they're still not the face of the league. They are not like LeBron, Steph, KD. They're not there yet. there will be once those three like pass the torch, and it feels like it's coming sooner than ever. But
The thing about that is, though, is the NBA giving itself the room to move on to the new generation because it still feels like all the conversation in this league is about LeBron and about Curry and about that generation of superstar. And like the Olympics last year, where like the stars on that team were Curry and LeBron and KD. Like it was that, I mean, it was centered around those players and they really haven't given the room to these new stars. Now, I do think over the next couple of years, the NBA has a massive opportunity to change this narrative because with the Olympics coming to the US in 2028, right? You're not going to see, in my opinion, that same core of Curry, LeBron, KD. You're going to see a new crop of American stars in an era where we're seeing more international stars. And you're seeing Jokic and you're seeing Luka Doncic and all these other guys. But you know, I get what you're saying, where it doesn't feel like you
yeah,
ask any person on the street, they're gonna know who LeBron is. They're gonna know who Steph Curry is. But I'll be curious if I walked around Chattanooga, how many people could tell me who Shy Gijus Alexander is, or how many people could tell me like Anthony Edwards? I would venture to say there's a lot of people who couldn't tell me who they were. I mean, there's even non-sports people who know who LeBron is. So, why? I guess the question is there a way that the NBA can reverse that saturation?
because for example, the NFL, they were able to move from the old generation to the new generation, at a much faster pace, from the stars of the 2010s, Brady, Manning, the Mannings, Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers, and they have this new coming generation that is already a face of the league. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. The NBA, of course, you have those, fans that are excited about it, but I don't know. I feel like this 2025 playoff shows that we have a new emerging teams, but the stars are still a long way to be the face of the league.
Right. And the NBA desperately needs both the conference finals and the NBA finals to be really, really good, really compelling, really entertaining to establish these stars. Like, we need to see classic SGA performances, a classic Halliburton, a classic Jalen Brunson. Well, we need to see some classic performances to establish these guys as clutch performers. Because one of these four teams who either A, have never won a title, three of them haven't. I mean, okay, so Oklahoma City, if you counted their title as the Seattle Supersonics, you could, but OKC doesn't even claim that. So three out of the four cities in Oklahoma City, Indiana, and Minnesota never won. I've never won an NBA championship. New York, it's been 50 years. So only really old people in New York are going to remember, the Knicks winning an NBA Finals. So effectively, for all these four fan bases, someone's winning their first championship. And, the pressure of that, I mean, it's equally exciting as it is just a complete unknown because there are no narratives here, in my opinion. I don't know what to expect from any of these teams at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. That was my point, Nick. I feel like that was what I wanted to. The point that I was gonna get is that there's no player narratives. There's only history in the making for three franchises looking for their first title ever. As it's like three cities that want to win their first title ever with their basketball team, or a city that breathes basketball, but in the 21st century, pretty much irrelevant.
Absolutely. I also want to shout out everyone liking the stream on TikTok. Cole, your last one, the IC, and I had some others earlier on. Also, shout out to your grandma, Emilia Carmago, saying,
Oh,
hey.
yeah, and I want to also hopefully she'll get better. She has feels like she's coming with the flu. Hopefully she'll get better. And also shout out Julia Acedo in Bragança Paulista, also watching us as well. But back to talk about this NBA playoffs, which is good about it is this new fresh of fans and teams that desperately, deserve, like all those four teams, especially because of their failed, their past history, deserve it. The Minnesota with OKC, the with all the trio with KD, Harden, and Westbrook failed. Indiana had Reggie Miller era, then the Paul George era, both failed.
And then remember,
Minnesota,
they Ron Artest was a young budding star until the Malice at the Palace.
yeah, you had the Minnesota Timberwolves with Kevin Garnett as
Hmm.
well. Didn't work. So all those three franchises had moments where the fans felt they were their turn and they were let down. And the Knicks, don't get me started. The '90s felt like there was going to be the decade of the Knicks, but they had two problems. Chicago, Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller and Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I would say I was going to ask the question: which one of these four do we think has the most pressure? I think it's clearly got to be the New York Knicks. Like we're
Yeah.
talking about New York here. I mean, this is the basket. Well, okay. Before Jason comes on here in a few minutes, because we can argue the basketball mecca, right? Because I think of the Harlem Blacktops, right? But then also Hoosier Hysteria also
I'll,
is,
I'll say this: Indiana is the state basketball. New York City is the city basketball.
yeah. I mean, they're both like 1A and 1B when it comes to importance to basketball across this country. And one of those two fan bases are going to be in the NBA finals. Like the environments in this Eastern Conference Finals are going to be unreal. But let's kind of revert back because we want to you have Jason in here when we talk more about that. The Thunder and the Wolves, because to me, the Thunder absolutely answered a big call on Sunday because I have my questions. Well, I thought they were the better team throughout the series. Could they answer the call in a game 7? Could Shy Geiger Alexander show up and answer the call in game 7? And also, shout out to Just Followed You. I thank you. Um, but Shy Geiger Alexander had 35. Jalen Williams had 24. They had very soft performances from all across their bench and were really able to shut down everyone around Nikola Jokic. Jokic had 29 and 7 on his greatest performance, but still a decent performance, and no one else on that team outside of Christian Braun really showed up. And that was the kind of the goal, and they played really solid team basketball, and they got down early in this game too, but they didn't panic. That crowd in Oklahoma City certainly didn't panic, and they were able to come back and really dominate. So, Oklahoma City showed me a lot of maturity, and to me, they seem like the most balanced team left out there. Now, when you look at Minnesota, on the other hand, yes, you obviously got Anthony Edwards, but you also have Gobert, you have Mike Conley. I mean, this is a solid bunch for Minnesota as well. And a bunch that I would argue has more experience, especially more playoff experience versus the Thunder. But I do think the Thunder right now are probably better constructed.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the bigger question for that series was: is this is this roster ready for a big moment like this? And they answer perfectly. And right now, I feel like if they, of course, there's going to be pressure, but I think Minnesota has more pressure because they are Oklahoma is in the making, and and I feel like they have a solid chance to make it to the finals.
Right. But I mean, do we think that this is going to come down to who performs better between SGA and Anthony Edwards? Like, how important is just the superstar versus superstar matchup in this series?
Oh yeah, that matchup I think is critical for this playoff series. I feel like whoever shines, I feel like gonna because those two teams are so uh, equal. If they're which superstar shines the most is gonna make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and additionally too, I think the Holmgren versus Julius Randle matchup as well down low. That's going to be absolutely critical. Holmgren, got through the Jokic matchup, and obviously you're not going to face another center quite that good the remainder of the postseason. So that is an absolutely massive deal. To me, though, I just think SGA is better than Anthony Edwards. I mean, Anthony Edwards is awesome. He's a great player. But I just think SGA right now is just a little bit better. And to me, I think the Thunder are going to take this in 6 to get back to their first finals since 2012. But I will definitely say I think OKC has much more pressure as the 1 seed. Minnesota was a 6 seed here. So I think Minnesota is the underdog. I think, they should walk into this a lot more free flowing than OKC.
I think it's gonna be OKC in 7.
Okay. OKC in 7. I've got OKC in 6, but we're both on the Thunder to move on to the Western Conference Finals. And just how just massive that would be for Oklahoma City to get to the finals with a new core. And you think about this too, that Russell Westbrook was on the Nuggets. Russell Westbrook was on their bench, and they were able to defeat a team with him on it. I mean,
And that was, and I forgot about that, and that was symbolic because it feel like that win over that player kind of eviscerates all that past that was, Westbrook was the MVP, but he was a ball hogger, and he was the reason that KD and Harden left, and all that negativity and questioning, and that was over. And look what we have.
Yes, it's time to talk some Eastern Conference Finals.
Don't sleep on Naptown, Gus. Let me tell you why the Knicks are about to get their asses kicked.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
the floor is y'all's. Let's talk Knicks Pacers. And I'll just
Nick, I'm going to need you to moderate this discussion because it's about to get heated.
Okay, all right. We'll ask the questions. I'm the moderate here. So obviously, Eastern Conference Finals, Knicks, Pacers. We've known about this for a few days now. First game, I believe, is Wednesday. So, obviously, we just saw the series last year, right? In the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Pacers won in 7 at MSG. And so the same setup again. The Knicks are going to have home court advantage to start this series. So whoever wants to take it first, what do we think is the similarities and differences between the series that we saw last year versus the series that we're going to see here over the next couple of weeks?
I think for the Knicks side is, I think I said in the last episode of the pod, it's just this core got really connected, but last year they were lacking some playoff experience. They were still developing the chemistry, and I think they clicked, and that's what I'm hoping for. I think that environment in MSG after they beat mercifully the Celtics. I mean, the Knicks just beat the current NBA champion in decisive game 6 by almost 40 points. That gotta show how this core is ready for a moment like this, the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think game 6. I don't put as much into game 6 as you do, Gus. I think more than anything, the Celtics ran out of gas. They gave everything in game 5 without Tatum. And that's nothing to take away from. That's not to take away from anything that the Knicks have done in the series. I think what they were able to pull off in games 1 and 2 were both remarkable. But I do think that the Celtics are significantly they're significantly lesser than they were last year. With that said, I mean, I don't even think the Celtics were that unstoppable last year. The Pacers, got swept in the Eastern Conference Finals, but it was about 15 points from being a sweep the other way. And so and that was the closest series that Boston had. And so, while I respect what the Knicks have done so far, and I do think that the two best teams in the Eastern Conference are in the Eastern Conference Finals now. I don't think. Well, let me answer the question at hand. So the Knicks got better by trading away Julius Randle in the Karl Towns trade. So they acquired Karl Towns, they acquired Mikal Bridges, both of which make the starting five better. When you have Tom Thibodeau as your head coach, your starting five must be as good as it can be because he does not trust anybody on the bench. And you can look at the numbers. He's playing about a 7-man rotation right now. So you've got Brunson, Hart, Anunoby, Bridges, and Towns as your starting five. And then the only guys coming off the bench right now are Robinson and McBride. That's your 7, period. You know, Precious Achua is lucky to stand up to grab a Gatorade. All right. You know, nobody from 8 down, that back half of the bench might as well just stayed glued to your seat. So, with that said, the starting five got better for the Knicks. And then plus, to your point, Gus, I think the Knicks also got some playoff experience last year, primarily with Brunson, Anunoby, and Hart. That trio grew together a little bit. With that said, I think the same can be said for the Pacers. The Pacers didn't make any significant changes, but everybody got better, and the continuity is still there. Plus, the Pacers also go 10 deep even in the playoffs with significant minutes. Even Ben Shepherd, who is, the 10th guy off the end of the bench, he's still getting 8 or 10 minutes a game even in the playoffs. And I think that's very important moving forward in this series. And so Nick, to answer your question, I think those are really the things that I would say are the big difference makers in this series relative to last year, more than anything else.
Yeah, because to me, last year, I felt like both teams were in ascension mode, but they definitely weren't in championship mode yet. This year, it feels like both teams are now like, okay, we feel like we can win now. And obviously, I mean, one of these teams that's got to go to the NBA Finals, right? And, we were talking before you hopped on, Jason, about it feels like out of all 4 teams remaining, the Knicks probably have the most pressure just because it is New York. And it's been 50 years since they've won the NBA Finals. But then again, none of the other 3 franchises have won NBA championships. I mean, I know the Pacers won some ABA titles back in the 70s, but I mean, would you agree with that assessment that New York has more pressure here than Indiana?
Oh, no doubt. And it's not only because it's New York, but it's because all of the talking heads all over ESPN love the Knicks because they're from New York. We're talking Stephen A., Doris Burke, all these guys. They all love the Knicks. Mike Greenberg. All the talking heads are Knicks fans. The media is pushing the New York Knicks agenda. And right or wrong, that puts pressure on them. Plus, New York is the biggest market by a lot. New York City is probably bigger than Minneapolis, Oklahoma City, and Indianapolis put together. And so I do. I think that's the truth. I think the pressure is squarely on the Knicks because the other 3 teams are teams that people are like, why are they even here? Because in the West, you were expecting Denver. You were expecting the Lakers. You were expecting
Golden State.
Right. And not like basketball fans necessarily, but people were expecting that. I think basketball fans expected what we've got here to a degree. Maybe a little bit surprising that both Cleveland and Boston got disposed of so easily in the conference semifinals, but anybody that actually pays attention to basketball is not surprised that these 4 teams are still standing at this point in the season. But to answer your question, Nick, absolutely. I think the Knicks are squarely under the most pressure. And I think that there's a good amount of people that think if it doesn't happen for them this year, it's never going to happen. Not with this core, at least, because they're teetering on having to pay into the doubles in luxury tax. And so there's going to be some cap casualties, and it feels like the Knicks are going all in this year anyway. And so I think it's squarely on the Knicks pressure-wise for a multitude of reasons.
And to your point, Jason, I think we talked about that earlier. All those 4 franchises have been this road before of feeling this gonna be the year, having cores. They're like, no, this gotta be it, and fail. Your Pacer had, like we point out, Reggie Miller, Ron Artesta, and Paul George eras, and they only came really close in 2000. And the Knicks, this with Patrick Ewing, then they had the magical 2000 run, but then they were destroyed by the Spurs. And but I think all 4 teams have that feeling of, is this the year, or are we gonna get to the road again, and are we able to come back? Because Cleveland is still a viable team to go back. They have a young roster. I think Boston probably gonna be a title contender next year. I don't believe Jason Tate is going nowhere. But yeah, I think that. But the Knicks have the most pressure because you see outside Madison Square Garden. I mean, what an atmosphere! That remind me of the Toronto Raptors 2019 run, where they show outside Jurassic Park. That kind of environment, is different.
It's just nuts that that's the only championship Toronto's ever going to experience. But that's a topic for here in a little bit.
R.I.P. to the Leafs.
Yeah. I also want to shout out Spencer Young. He says, "Do not fear, for I am here." As well.
Yes, we have more Pacers people in the comments.
Big Pacers fan.
You better believe it. But
yeah,
really quick, I just want to throw this in here. Gus, you made a comment about Cleveland. I actually don't think Cleveland's going to get back to this level. I actually don't. I think this was their year, and they weren't actually that good. That's a hot take for maybe a different show, but I am not very high on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm very high on their backcourt and very low on everything else about their team. So,
right.
Nick, let's get back to the topic at hand, though. Apologies.
Because Donovan Mitchell's a great player, but it's like, he's never been able to actually take a team on his back, like a Kawhi or like a LeBron or, someone, or Curry, Donovan Mitchell.
I mean, he put up 40 a game against the Pacers. I don't know what more you want from the man, to be fair. His roster let him down. I think he played out of his damn mind.
Yeah. Spencer, he says that basketball is different in Indiana. It's a way of life. And we're just talking about this before you hopped on about, basketball in New York versus basketball in Indiana, right? Like, Gus, I think, put it rightly. It's the top basketball city versus the top basketball state. And I think, the two kind of encapsulate the two halves of the American basketball identity.
Yeah, and that's why a rivalry like this has withstood generations. The Knicks versus Pacers rivalry is officially into 3 generations of basketball fans now, because you had the rivalry in the 90s, you had the rivalry renewed in the very early 2000s, and then 2013, and then you have it again in 2024 and now 2025. This rivalry has spanned the better part of 30 years, and I'm here for it. And a lot of that is for that reason, Nick. I think that's a very good point.
And I go even bigger. Do you think Knicks and Pacers kind of mirror a little bit in terms of, all the back history as well, Yankees and Red Sox, or just overall? Because I don't
know about that. I mean, Yankees, Red
Sox.
Never,
ever compare Indianapolis to Boston ever again.
Thank you. Yankees, Red Sox is like probably the most important.
But in the NBA, I don't see in the NBA a bigger rivalry than the Knicks Pacers.
I mean, Celtics, Lakers.
Celtics, Lakers, but outside of that,
outside of that, okay, second.
Warriors, Cavs in the 2010s.
No.
Get
out of here. Mute his mic. Mute his mic and tell him to shut up real quick, because that was asinine. Get him off the podcast.
Let's hear Nick's argument.
everyone ruined the NBA for years because the Warriors went crying to KD.
Nah, but okay, but that was a run.
That doesn't make it a better rivalry. Come on now.
I mean, I guess it's fair, but like 2016 Warriors Cavs, though. I mean, that
It was
was
an
like,
electric series, but that doesn't mean that it's a great rivalry. It means that
Yeah.
they had like 4 series in a row.
Yeah,
They hated each other for like 4 years.
I mean, I guess all right.
You're talking 3 generations of Hicks versus Knicks. Are you kidding? Come
okay,
on now. Hit me up.
You're
Hit
right.
me up when Warriors Cavs makes it to like 2040.
Okay,
all right? Then we're
no.
then we're talking.
All right,
not
that's
only
a
that,
Gen Z take. I will fully admit that.
no, and not only that, like Knicks and Pacers is such a big rivalry. They went even further than the basketball court. Look at the movie, the 34-30 about that series. That encapsulates like there's like outside of Lakers, Celtics.
I mean,
There's
both
other
in the 90s, early to late 80s, early 90s, but like I mean, that really hasn't withstood the test of time either. But
which one?
the Bulls Pistons of like late 80s, early 90s.
Maybe, but maybe if they ran again into other like type of heated series, but like that was like Jason encapsulates perfectly. It's 3 generations of intense, battles between those two franchises.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're talking rivalries that have withstood the test of time in the National Basketball Association, Knicks, Pacers, Celtics, Lakers, and I don't think there's another rivalry that even comes close to either. And granted, I think Celtics Lakers is far and away number 1. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
But as far as the clear-cut number 2, and I don't think it's close, I think it's Pacers and Knicks. No 2 teams outside of Boston, Los Angeles have had this type of rivalry for this type of time period. And I think it goes, like Gus said, it goes beyond basketball. It's a culture war. You have the East Coast elitism versus the flyover state Midwest charm. You've got small market versus big market. You've got superstars versus depth.
No.
You choose your superlative and you can make it apply to this rivalry. And that's what makes it so special. These teams are antitheses of each other in every conceivable way.
Yeah. And that in the 90s, that iconic choking scene of Reggie Miller is one of the greatest scenes of the National Basketball Association of all time. And
I think it's the best. I don't think it's one of, Gus. I think it is the best. If you talk about iconic moments, it's Jordan with his tongue out and that. And there's nothing else that comes close.
I mean, third, I think AI stepping over Tyronn Lue is pretty iconic too, but it's probably like third or, in 2000.
There's the Gen Z among us, Gus.
I was 3 years old when that happened. Like I didn't see that.
And what made that moment so iconic is that the game 6 of that series was in Indiana. And then Spike Lee had the courage to go to Indianapolis to watch that game.
I respect the hell out of it too.
Yeah, I thought it was, courageous. I think it was bold, and that made the rivalry, those are the moments that made a rivalry what it is.
Yeah, speaking of going on the road, Jason, you got to talk about being in Cleveland for Game 5. I mean, what was that like? Especially when you guys got down by like 17 early, and then you guys rallied to come back and win. And also, getting be on the front page of the Indy Star too.
Yeah, shut out, man. Congrats. You deserve. I was happy for you.
I wasn't on the front page. Let's not get it twisted. I was maybe on page A8 or some crap.
But still, you got a picture taken during the game by a newspaper. That it's already itself really awesome because you wanted to be in capture a moment of fandom like you had.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. If we can get this picture on the screen, Nick, I'll send it to you. If we can get that on the screen,
send on the group. If you
okay, I can make that happen too. That's cool.
Yeah, because then you can put it right away.
Yeah, all right. If we can get that on the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will.
This is what these guys are talking about. It's a photo of me holding this scarf up in Cleveland. One of the Indy Star reporters, her name is Christine. She's excellent. We love her. She took my picture prior to the game, and then she asked if she could get my name. And so, yeah, there it is. Indiana Pacers fan Jason Wyrick, 28, holds up a scarf. So that's this scarf. Don't sleep on Naptown. Yeah, it was just a really special moment. First and foremost, though, it was special because it was inexpensive and cost effective. So in the door on Sunday for Game 4 at home was $180 in Indianapolis. That's unheard of. Our tickets usually are under $100 to get in the door, even in playoff time. And this was just in the door, $180. And I'm thinking, there's no way. But then when we whooped Cleveland's ass in Game 4 and all their fans started bailing and thinking, all right, we're in trouble, I was able to snag 2 tickets for $72. Not each.
What?
Total.
What?
$36 each.
Talk about fair weather fans in Cleveland.
Holy, that was a steal.
Yeah, so I took my friend Harrison, and Harrison and I.
Folks in Ohio at the first sign of trouble, they just don't show up and bail.
I mean,
Nick and I learned that in December.
Yeah, I was gonna say that to you, Jason. It's not your first time going to an important sporting event in Ohio where the local fans doesn't seem to really care that much.
But this one worked out way better for him. This
right. Yeah. So the first thing that was great, it was cost effective. We had $36 tickets, and the entire trip for the two of us cost $140, split 2 ways. So that's a $70 trip with about 10 hours in the car. So I mean, I'll take it. It was so much fun. Just being there. The arena was really hostile. It wasn't like a nasty hostile. Like Bucks fans were mean. Cavs fans were just loud and in your face. And there's a big difference. And so when I was there, like the atmosphere was incredible. And I had people, chirping in my face all game, especially when the Pacers were down by 19 in the second quarter. Excuse me. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm cursed because the Pacers have lost 2 games this postseason, and I was at the one in Milwaukee that we lost by like 40. And I'm thinking, crap, I'm cursed. I can't come back. I'm thinking I have to take one for the team and never go to another Pacers playoff game. And then at the end of the first half, the final 5 or 7 minutes, the Pacers just started hitting threes. The Pacers got open looks the whole game, but to that point had not been able to make anything. There was a lid on the bucket and started hitting some threes. And I'm thinking, okay, if we could get this back to 10, we're in business. Then we got it back to 10. And I'm thinking if we could get this within 5, that would be just incredible to go into the half down by 5. And I think we went into the half down by 4. And so we came out of the half and just immediately took the lead in the third quarter. And we didn't really look back. But the way that the Pacers closed that game out, weathering the storm from Cleveland, especially with Donovan Mitchell, was incredible. Every single time, 6 or 8 times in a row, Cleveland would come back and bring it within a possession or maybe 2, and then the Pacers would just stomp it out. Just hit a clutch 3 or get a clutch bucket to silence the crowd over and over and over again.
That's the thing that really stands out to Indiana is they just find ways. It doesn't matter who's shooting on the team.
And I will get there. I promise I will get there. That's one of my points I'm going to make, Nick. We lost Gus. He doesn't want to hear me talk about how the Knicks are going to lose. Boo this man. You don't want to hear about how the Knicks are going to lose, Gus. Don't tell me you're bailing early.
I'm here. I'm not
bailing.
bailing.
Your podcast. I can't host your podcast.
No. I was just gonna get water because I was thirsty. But I can't. But I want to say though, it's really that's why going to away games in soccer, in basketball. I mean, pretty much that, Jason. But I also been to, even as a working for a PR for Real Bronco as a PR, road game feels different.
Oh yeah.
Win on the road really feels different.
There's nothing quite like it. And this is what I was talking about when a certain snake was the quarterback at Tennessee, and he came out and said, "No offense to our home fans, but road games are more fun." This is what he meant, because there's nothing quite.
Retrospect to me, are just not like Nealon at all. You know?
With like when you get off the bus, hand out an L in hostile territory and get back on the bus, there's nothing quite like that. I felt that way as a player. I felt that way as a coach. I feel that way as a fan. And
I feel that as well as for working for a PR for my team here. Yeah. Like quite nothing. Like last year in the quarterfinals of the A4 in the fourth division, when we got to the bus after going on the road and get qualified, quite nothing like celebrating with the players. It really felt different.
Yeah. And so when we came back and won, there were a lot of Cavs fans that were just dejected and sad because they'd kind of seen it coming. But there was one kid right in front of me, and I want to tell this story in particular because it's quite apropos. There's one kid directly in front of me. He's probably 15 or so. He's definitely high school age, but he's probably 15 or so. And he's chirping at me all game, and he's pissing me off. And I only said one thing to him all game, and I said, this was during the third quarter. I said, you're talking a lot for being down in a closeout game. And to his credit, they were on a run, and they were only down by like 2 points after being down like 10, and he was really feeling it. But anyway, I'm thinking to myself, when we win, because I never in my mind is this game in doubt. I'm thinking, all right, all we got to do is keep hitting shots. We're going to win this game if we keep hitting shots. And ultimately that's what happened. But I'm thinking to myself, do I want to dunk on this kid when I leave? Do I want to say nothing? How do I want to handle this situation? Because on one hand, he's pissing me off. But on the other hand, I respect it because he reminds me of me. And that's how I would be acting too, especially at that age. And so I'm thinking, you know what? Game respects game. And so I'm trying to think how I want to handle this. And the Pacers end up winning, and the opportunity presented itself. So he and his family, he was there with his dad and his brother, I think, and maybe somebody else, but definitely it was two brothers and a dad. And they left as soon as the game was over. And this kid who was right in front of me left his shirt that he bought at the store under his seat by accident. And so I'm thinking, okay, the opportunity has presented itself. I'm taking the Andrew Luck route. And so I took this bag and ran it down the stairs and gave it to his dad and say, I think your son left this. And I just turned my back and went straight back up to my seat and celebrated. And you know what? I think that was a good way to do it too. Because like I said, I don't know if I want to dunk on a kid, but I also respect the hell out of what he was doing because I would 100% be doing the same thing, especially at that age. That's how I was acting towards Miami fans or Bulls fans during the playoff runs when I was in high school. So I get it. But anyway, so I handled that, I felt like, with some class. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of what the experience was like. It was the easiest 4.5 hours I've ever driven home in my life, especially at that time of night, too. It was an 8 o'clock tip-off. It was terrible. I didn't get home till like 4 in the morning. But you know what? I had fun. And Cleveland was good to me. And so it was fun and cost effective. And I'll tell you what, doing that, I think my appetite has been satisfied for Pacers playoff basketball because I can't afford the $400 in the door that this Eastern Conference Finals is taking, even at home games. So I'll be watching from my freaking couch.
Yeah, because MSG is probably 600 or 700.
Yeah, and that I feel like that will be forever. That picture, those stories will be forever with you. So, if the Pacers wins it all, that's your moment in the title.
Absolutely. And like I said before, this is the most confident I have ever been in any Pacers team in my lifetime, because you have the most balanced and deep team left, in my view. Plus, you have no super teams left in your way. You don't have the LeBron Heat. You don't have the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. You've got, like, the biggest threat to me is Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns. And I mean, I understand Minnesota's got Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards, but they just don't scare me. They don't. They really don't. And I think the Timberwolves are kind of what the Pacers were last year. I think they're probably going to lose in the conference finals. But I also think their core, they have some good vets. Like Gobert and Randall have been around the block. But
Yeah, Mike
ultimately,
Conley.
that team goes as deep as Anthony Edwards takes them. And I don't think Anthony Edwards is ready.
Yeah, we both picked the Thunder. I picked them in 6. Gus picked them in 7.
Yeah, give me Oklahoma City. I'll go in 5. I think it's going to be even a shorter series than that, personally. But if it went to 6 or 7, I wouldn't be surprised. But gut feeling, I think both. Gut feeling is I think both conference finals series are going to go pretty quick.
So let's talk about Knicks Pacers. The matchup, because to me, and we've kind of alluded to it, it's this Rick Carlisle versus Tom Thibodeau, the up-tempo Pacers versus the defensive Knicks. How do we think this plays out for a second straight year?
Go ahead, Jason.
All right, Gus is ready. Gus is ready to hear me rip apart the Knicks. So now he's giving me a dirty look for it too.
Okay.
So here's the thing with the Knicks. This is the problem that I think they're going to have. They are not ready for this track meet. They only go 7 deep. They only have the starting 5 and Miles McBride and Mitchell Robinson. And I was getting at this earlier, but if you look at minutes per game in the playoffs, that entire starting 5 is pushing 40 minutes a game. I think Karl Towns has the lowest total, and he's at like 35. And that's more than any Pacers player plays in a playoff game. And so the Knicks are not built for this track meet to begin with. And I think, especially given that the Pacers have had extra rest, like 3 days extra of rest, plus the depth, I think that spells a really, really, really bad matchup for the Knicks. But even if the Knicks come out and win game 1, over the course of 7 games, I do not think they can keep up with the Pacers running up and down the court, pressing 48 minutes a game for 7 games over the course of 2 weeks. I don't think they can keep up. And I think the 2 best players on the court are the point guards. And so Brunson versus Halliburton is going to be its own show. It's going to be kind of a microcosm. But Jalen Brunson, even if Jalen Brunson and Karl Towns, say one of them goes for 40 every single night, and then the other one goes for maybe 20. So between them, give them 60 a game, right? And then you have the rest of your starting 5 is OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. How many points a game are those guys going to give you? OG Anunoby, probably going to give you 10 to 15 points a game, probably. Josh Hart, probably about 10 to 15 a game. And who am I missing? OG Anunoby, Josh Hart. Who am I missing here, Gus?
Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, both 10 to 15 points a game, probably. And crap. I already forgot who I was. Josh Hart. Yeah, Josh Hart. So
They had a kind of disappointing game 6. I mean, he only was 10 points, but he had 11 assists, so he was more like a
Sure. But if you're talking strictly based on points, which is what I'm getting at right now, and I will be happy for Nick to be able to moderate this one because I think Nick is in for some trouble here. But listen, if you have Brunson and Towns each going for 60 a game, if you're combined 40 and 20, which I think is possible, you got 60 points. And then you say 10 to 15 for the rest of your starting five. So that's another 45 points. So you're looking at 105 points. Then you have Mitchell Robinson and Miles McBride off the bench. How many are they going to give you a game? 5 to 7, probably. So on a good night, the Knicks are barely eclipsing 120 points. And that's if everything is going exactly right. The Pacers have only put up less than 120 points in the 2 game threes that we lost. The thing about the Knicks is I just don't know where those points are going to come from. If they are going to keep up with the Pacers, Jalen Brunson's going to have to go for 50. And if Jalen Brunson's going for 50, other guys are definitely not going to be going for a ton of points because he is not somebody – he's a volume scorer, which is fine, and he's great at what he does, but that doesn't mean he's being efficient. And so if you're talking that the Pacers are putting up 120 points a game, and credit to the Knicks. If their defense, let's bring it down a notch. Maybe the Pacers only go for 110 a game. But the Pacers have the most efficient offense in basketball and the highest scoring offense this season in the league. If you take those numbers and you just try to figure out where those points are coming from with the Knicks, I just don't see how they outscore the Pacers 4 times in 2 weeks, especially as the series goes on and the depth of the Pacers just completely wears down the 7 for the Knicks. It's for the Pacers, it's waves and waves because you've got 2 entire lineups. You could almost platoon it. And now the second team is certainly not as talented as the first team. Let's not be stupid about it. But you have 10 guys that can all go out there and put up 5 or 10 points on any given night at minimum. And you have the best passer the NBA has seen since Steve Nash facilitating this offense. Plus you have Pascal Siakam, who can hit mid-range, can get inside, can hit threes. Miles Turner, who can get inside and can also hit threes and space the floor. Karl Towns is getting dragged to the three-point line every single night, probably 50 times a game. And all that's going to do when Miles Turner makes it to the perimeter, that's just going to free up the lane for drive and kick. Because if you drive, because I think Halliburton can take Brunson off the dribble, at least enough to buy some open space. And if you kick it wide, if you help, you leave Miles Turner open. If you help from somebody else, you leave one of the wings open. And so that spacing that Miles Turner is going to be able to provide, taking Karl Towns out of the paint, is going to play into the Pacers' favor as well. And so all things said, Gus, I'm very confident in the Pacers. I think the Pacers match up really, really well with this Knicks team. And I think the primary concern that I have as a Pacers fan is, okay, is the whistle going to go against us? You know, you can call it whatever you want. Call it cynicism, call it conspiracy theories, whatever. But in the back of my mind, the league still wants New York to be in the finals because they don't want 2 small markets playing in the finals. And I was actually talking with our friend Aaron Young about this earlier. And he made this point to me, and it's really been weighing on my mind. Because if the Knicks get the whistle and it's really that egregious, it could be a lot closer than it otherwise would be. But to the same point, Cleveland got that whistle in the last round, and we still disposed of them in 5 games. So respectfully to Cleveland, though, the Knicks are a better team. They are better coached with better talent than Cleveland, with more experience.
So what you're saying is we need to watch out for Lakers Kings 2002 in this series.
Look, the Knicks don't have 47-year-old Gary Payton on their team. So there's that.
Yeah, and they don't have Kobe and Shaq either. So
I don't know. Depending on who you ask, Brunson and Towns may be better than Kobe and Shaq.
yeah, because I saw some discussion like around like Knicks fans like climbing light poles and stuff for making the Eastern Conference Finals, and talking about like, oh, why are these young fans? They're celebrating the playoff win like it's a championship. I'm like, well, most of them have never seen the Knicks get this far.
I mean, I remember when I went to Atlanta to watch the Knicks against the Atlanta Hawks, and Knicks were terrible 10 years ago. So from that to now, I felt in every reaction to the Knicks, to the Knicks fandom, to a Knicks fan. I know I'm not that die hardcore Knicks that maybe I was when I was in the state, because you ended up, not being that connected. You ended up, following more the Brazilian soccer in Brazil. But I still have the connection. I mean, my first ever NBA game was the New York Knicks game against the Charlotte Hornets. I remember, that 2015 game, the 2016 Knicks Hawks, where Carmelo Anthony played insane, and there were 4 overtimes. So I still have a connection. Hopefully this will be the year, but I totally agree with what Jason said. In terms of matchup 101, the Pacers have the better players, but then it will pose a more question. But coaching wise, maybe Thibodeau a little bit better. So that's the point. It's like,
I have a feeling Jason's going to disagree on this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Listen, I have one question for you. How many rings does Tom Thibodeau have? He has more ruined careers than rings.
But maybe New York was his
the reason why Derrick Rose isn't going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. Here's another thing, really quick, and this is about to be clipped. So whenever this happens, I'm telling you now, this is going to happen, and I don't want it to happen, but it's going to happen. I made this comment the other night when they were blowing out the Boston Celtics. Jalen Brunson was still in that game up by like 30. Jalen Brunson is going to be Derrick Rose if he's not careful. Yeah. Tom Thibodeau is going to kill Jalen Brunson like he killed Derrick Rose. And I don't want it to happen. I want to whoop Jalen Brunson's bitch ass when he's healthy. But that's how it's going to end up. And I said the same thing to Bulls fans. And I was with my cousin Travis, and he will back me on this because he was there and he heard me. The last game of the season, 2011 or 12, the Pacers were playing the Bulls. This was the last game of the season before the Bulls played the Sixers in the playoffs. There was a guy who was a Bulls fan sitting next to us, and I said, I think we've seen the best of Derrick Rose. He's going to get hurt playing like this. He relies too much on his athleticism and his explosiveness. One day he's going to get himself hurt. And wouldn't you know it, less than a week later, Tom Thibodeau left him in when they were up by like 15 in the first round against Philadelphia, and he was never the same. Tom Thibodeau ruins careers. I respect the hell out of what he does defensively, but that man is a basketball terrorist when it comes to athletic point guards, especially. And he does not protect his players from themselves.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't know how to like rotate players in and out.
No, and he doesn't trust anybody. And see, I like Tom Thibodeau. I think he's a good coach, but there are some things that he does that piss me off, and they should piss off every single Knicks fan, because Jalen Brunson does not need to be the new Derrick Rose. And that's what's going to happen. And I apologize to everybody in advance that has to clip this later and when I have to say I told you so. But Thibodeau, like, his ideals, the way he coaches basketball is not good. His basketball IQ is good, but he's not a good coach. In terms of like actually managing a team. I don't think he is. And Rick Carlisle, on the other hand, has been MF Shepherd, all right, from Belmont, playing meaningful playoff minutes. And he has a championship also. So respectfully, Gus, I'm going to disagree. But again,
And I would
like I
almost argue that the load management that we have seen over the past decade has been a response to Tom Thibodeau specifically. And what
I don't
happened?
think there's any doubt. And like I said, Tom Thibodeau, X's and O's, is a terrific basketball mind. There is no reason that he should have such a problem rotating in a bench. But like I said earlier, when Gus was
This
talking
may be
about
a
the improvements that the Knicks made,
But
and
like,
I said that their starting five got better. That's perfect for Thibodeau because he's not going to use anybody else anyway.
and this may be an unfair comparison, but these are sometimes things I feel about Rick Barnes when I watch him, especially in blowouts. I'm like, why are we not getting in our bench? And granted, you can't really compare college to the NBA. And Rick Barnes definitely, to me, doesn't abuse his players the way that Thibodeau does. And obviously, the seasons are nowhere near as long. But I know I've had that thought several times of like, okay, why is Grant Williams still up in this game when we're up by 30? Why is Dalton Connect in this game when we're up by 20? You know,
I mean, I think it is. I think it's absolutely a fair comparison to make because your starters should not be in when you are up by like 30 in a blowout. Period. End of story. It should not happen. Empty your bench. For the love of God, protect your players. It's not hard.
Guess what are your thoughts on all that?
I agree with you, Jason. I feel like he's an intense coach that wants to get the best out of his players, and maybe he overdo it. But I feel like he's very connected with his players. I feel like they developed such a chemistry that if it worked out. But as I said, I know the Pacers are the favorite to advance, but it's like this Knicks
Are we?
kind.
That's the first I've heard that.
Oh yeah, Jason. Like last year, they were unquestionably, they advanced unquestionably to the Eastern Conference Finals against the same New York Knicks. Both teams have not made huge changes from last year to this year, so that's why I'm putting the Pacers like favorite. But I'm not saying they're a big favorite. They're like let's say, um, if you were football, I say they are like a 3-point favorite.
I don't disagree, but like I said, that's the first I've heard of it. I keep seeing everybody saying, "Oh, Knicks in 5, Knicks in 6." Nobody's even giving the Pacers a chance, which is music to my ears because the more people that disrespect the Pacers, the better, because that's something that feeds right into what Rick Carlisle does.
Yes.
Gus, you said something just a second ago that I really liked, and I wanted to point that out. You talked about Tom Thibodeau having a really good relationship with his players and having a good chemistry with his players. I absolutely agree with that. That's one of the things that makes him such a well-respected coach among players. However, with that said, at some point you have to protect them because no competitor and most players in the NBA are going to be competitors. There are some guys out there like Ben Simmons who are just out to cash a check, whatever. But most of the guys in the league are competitors. And you're not going to get a competitor out of a game, even if they're up by 30, without a fight. And at some point, I think Tom Thibodeau has to just assert his will as the coach and be like, dude, you're coming out. We need you tomorrow. Get some rest. And he just doesn't. And if he were coaching the Pacers, that would be the most infuriating thing I've ever seen. And like I said, I really don't want what happened to Derrick Rose to happen to like Jalen Brunson or Karl Towns or anybody on the Knicks. I don't want that. And I'm truly, honestly, I am afraid that's what's going to happen eventually. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But I wish that I would have been wrong about Derrick Rose too. And Nick was right. Tom Thibodeau is the reason that Derrick Rose is not a Hall of Famer. And there's nothing to say that that couldn't have happened otherwise, but it didn't need to happen, especially the way that it did. And I don't know. It's a really sensitive issue for me because the Pacers have had 3 straight franchise players suffer from career-altering injuries. Because you had Danny Granger, and even before him, it may be even 4, because Jonathan Bender was supposed to be the Pacers franchise player before him, and then injuries derailed his career. Then Danny Granger had injuries derail his career. Victor Oladipo had injuries derail his career. Paul George had injuries derail his career. That's 4. I didn't even think about Jonathan Bender when I was growing up, but 4 straight franchise players for the Pacers between when I was like 6 to now, almost 29. 4 straight franchise players have been have suffered career-altering injuries that made them never the same. And so I'm quite outspoken about trying to protect the players from injuries, and that's why. So, Gus, I'm sorry to just rant and not let you talk at all. This is your podcast. You can tell me to shut up whenever you want, Gus.
I want the quite opposite. I couldn't wait for you to join in because I want all your insight. You are a valuable person to this podcast because, to be honest, though, I have not been followed the NBA closely. I'm really being honest. Of course, I have my Knicks gear because I'm more like now a Knicks enthusiast than a fan because I'm not.
He's taking his fandom out so he doesn't have to take this L when the Knicks lose.
Okay.
Can I call myself a Titans enthusiast so I no longer have to bear the burdens of this poverty franchise?
Okay. So I create a new term. So whenever you want to disassociate yourself to a team that because of shame or because you're enthusiast. So I create a new term.
I'm a Chicago White Sox enthusiast, Gus.
I love that. I love that we create a new term in American sports, right? So you can be a team's enthusiast.
I would say the same about Indy 11. They bring me shame every single week also, but you know what? Can't do it. That's my squad, and when I die, they better be my pallbearers so they can let me down one last time.
All right, let's do picks for Knicks Pacers. Gus?
What?
All right, let's do picks. Who do we have winning and in how many games?
Knicks in 7.
Jason?
Pacers in gut instinct tells me 5. Pacers in 5.
You have that in your bio already.
I was talking shit, all right? I was talking shit about Pacers in 5 here, right? But, I don't know. Like, I truly believe this series will be quick because I think the Knicks run out of gas. However, if it went to 6 games, if it went to 7 games, I don't think I'd be surprised.
All right, Spencer Young, he had a couple of comments said. He's first of all to you, Jason, he said 28 old man. Spencer then said anyone.
Meanwhile, this man is 30. Shame this man. You are 30. Don't call me old.
I think the beard brings a wisdom and a look older than it is.
Also, I feel like Mike Wazowski right now with Spencer's graphic over top of my face. This is excellent.
Yeah, and then he says anyone compares Kobe and Shaq to Brunson and Towns need to be checked into a psych ward now. And then he tells me there's always the ability to leave being a fan of that poverty franchise. I mean, I've thought about it, but like that'd be a pussy move. I'm going to stick by a team ran by an alcoholic because I was born in Tennessee, and this is just a team I grew up watching.
Okay, but weren't you born closer to Atlanta? And weren't the Titans not even there yet when you were born?
Well, I think the Titans were technically there in mid-1998 when I was born. Because the 1998-99 season was their first season. I think.
But they were there. Not in Nashville. They were in Memphis.
No, I think they were playing it. They played in Vandy in 98, 99. And then, so that was their last year as the Oilers. And then in 99, 2000 was their first year as the Titans in Nissan Stadium when it was like a Delphi filled or the Delphi Coliseum. So, so they were technically in Nashville already because the year or two before they were in Memphis when that was just a complete disaster and no one showed up. So, yeah. And so Spencer says, "Don't worry, Jason. You'll get that AARP card in the mail."
Oh,
Meanwhile, again, this man is 30. You are 30.
Oh my God. Okay, while we got Jason Rowell up, let's go to a much lighter subject: Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese in the WNBA.
Dude, if Angel Reese being bad at basketball has set race relations back 100 years. I said what I said.
Okay, but let's set the scene. Obviously, the NBA started this weekend, and the schedule makers of the NBA, they knew what they were doing, putting the Sky and the Fever against each other in each other's first game. They knew what they were doing. Let's just casually put the two most controversial franchises in the league against each other in game one, and let's see what happens. And of course, we had this quote unquote flagrant foul, which really wasn't a flagrant foul. I mean, it was.
Hold on, Nick. I have a very important comment that needs highlighted real quick, please. The old man at 30 here has a very valid point here. Return the name to Houston, thieves.
I agree. I give Houston back the Oilers. That is not. There is no oil in Tennessee. Give them back. Give it back. Maybe when Amy gets out of 2 C's, maybe she'll consider it. In fact, which bar do we think she's in? She's in tonight. Do we think she's in Morgan Wallen's bar? Do we think she's in? What are all the bars in Nashville?
I mean, for someone who has drinking problems, Nashville is a city to be avoided.
Yeah, not the best city to be in.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very unjournalistic of me, but whatever. This is a podcast.
I think
that's what we have. That's why we have here.
What is the what's the one that Nick Stringer and I went to with the house band? Oh crap!
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one that I think Amy's in because she's probably drunk hitting on the young guys playing bass.
Oh man, she's just sitting there thinking, "Man, we really drafted Cam Ward, who would have been QB8 last year in the draft." And Spencer also says Reese's garbage and the Sky only get national TV time when they face the Fever. So back to this. We had this whole quote unquote flagrant.
It was Nudie's honky tonk, by the way. That's where Amy's at tonight. Take that to the bank. But yeah, let's talk some dub.
Yeah, and of course we're not going to talk about the actual game.
I will be right back
because all the discussion is about what happened on the court between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and whether or not this was quote a flagrant foul because Caitlin got called for this push in the back, and it just and basically what you have seen is, as Jason has alluded to, it kind of turned into a racial relation deal with people being like, well, Caitlin Clark should have been called for a flagrant. She should be facing more repercussions for pushing Angel Reese in the back, but she isn't because she's a white woman. And then it just went completely off the rails from there. And you type in anything to do with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, you get no basketball discussion. It's all about freaking politics. It's you have Robert Griffin III and Ryan Clark trying to go at each other.
Which that was comedy, by the way, peak comedy.
Yeah, because Ryan Clark, if you didn't see this, Gus, Ryan Clark basically said that RG3 is defending Caitlin Clark because he has a white woman as his wife, which, hey, as an interracial man, I'm going to take offense to that. My dad has a white woman as a wife, right? What is that supposed to mean, man? We're going to hate, unions are going to create, more mixed kids. What are we doing here?
Look, if you had a problem with black dudes having white wives, you should have taken it up about 30 years ago, because look at the NBA. You got a bunch of light-skinned dudes running the NBA right now. You're a little late, Ryan Clark. Sorry, bud.
I mean, it's just so it's disheartening because it's just like, to me, right? Like I'm in the first really adult generation where you have a good, decent amount of mixed adults because, we were truly in the first generation where our parents were able to really get married and without like really any societal barriers, especially here in the South. So it's just insane now that we're kind of like time is a flat circle and we're kind of going back into this. It's just nuts that all of a sudden now that Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese is all of a sudden this it's just culture war. Like I mean, like I feel like Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson back in the
Stop it.
70s and 80s wasn't
Stop it.
anything like
No.
that.
Stop it. That's so disrespectful. No way. This rivalry is like this rivalry is like Steph Curry versus Tristan Thompson if Tristan Thompson was bad at basketball. Don't ever give me this Larry Bird versus Magic crap ever again. Ever. That's so disrespectful to Magic Johnson.
I'm not talking about in terms of like the quality of basketball. I'm talking about in terms of the impact on the league. Because
sure. In that case,
relative
sure.
to what that's what I'm saying, right? I'm like, it's definitely not the quality for sure.
Oh yeah, because if you're trying to tell me that the quality is there, I'm about to leave this podcast and tell you you're nuts. But in terms of what they bring to the game, Angel Reese is famous for about 5 minutes of her career. Has made it shot her into the stratosphere, and it was the final few minutes of the game against Iowa in the national championship where she does the John Cena "you can't see me" thing to Caitlin Clark, and then points to her finger where she's going to put her championship ring.
Right.
And everybody has been on Angel Reese like she's the next great basketball player ever since. And they have ignored the fact that Angel Reese is actually not that good at basketball. She's a really good trash talker. She's a really good instigator. And she's really good at posting provocative pictures on social media to get attention. And she's really good at running her mouth. But she's not really good at laying up a basketball and scoring points. She's really good at getting rebounds, but she can't really pass. She's uncoordinated in the post and can't score. So she's Dennis Rodman, but uncoordinated.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard my when you said the provocative picture, it's not as good as Haley Van Lith, but
Don't say that too loud. Ryan Clark's going to be in your DMs talking shit about you liking white
girls. Oh my God, he's going to be like, Nick, why are you betraying your people like that, man?
And then Gus is over here like, do I even want to hop back in this conversation? Gus is not sure where to even start.
Yeah, Gus, I mean, look, Gus, I mean, say whatever you want. You're not. I promise. I mean, it's just absurd that like this has gone far beyond. We haven't even talked about.
Yeah, it's so absurd. This nasty comments and this race and politics put it into, and that is, unfortunately losing two players that could have saved an entire league. How sad it is that we have to brought in race tensions to a great rivalry between two great players.
Well, I mean, and we have to ask too, like, yes, we see this all over social media, but how much is it actually permeating over to the actual fan base, right? Because, I mean, you see some of these fans online, right, who, like, for example, like, I go under RG Freeze tweets, and I saw one of them being
like... Oh, lucky you, I'm blocked. I can't see him anymore.
So, like, okay, so for example, So, like, one person says Caitlin Clark is Goku, Angel Reese is Vegeta. Simple. Hold on, I'm trying to find the one where he really where okay, I lost the really good tweet from RG Free. Let's see here. And basically, like one person said, quote, Robert, you are not victim. You decided to include your wife in your evisceration of Angel Reese. She was part of the video, not an affirmation at your take. When you decided to put her in front of the camera, she was fair game. You did this. Like, when you put her in front of the camera, like, you're proud of your wife? Like,
How could he be proud of his white wife?
like,
How could he?
yeah, like, how dare he be proud of his wife? Like,
But again, the problem is that she's white, and it's a racial thing, and I don't want to come across in some sort of crass way here, but let's call a spade a spade. I think a lot of the reason that Caitlin Clark is getting this hate is because she's a white girl. If she was a black girl, she would be being lifted up by all of these people that are tearing her down online right now. And this thing about, oh, there were racial slurs yelled at Angel Reese, that's BS. That entire thing is nonsense. If that were real, somebody would have posted a video of it online by now, and nobody has because it didn't happen. People want to act like people in Indiana are this just racist group of assholes, yet we're cheering for Aaliyah Boston. We're cheering for, Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam's as African American as it gets. The man's from Cameroon.
I mean, okay, like literally, personal story here. So my uncle Miller, he was from here in Chattanooga. He met his wife, a white woman, here in South Tennessee, and this was back in the '60s. So obviously, back then that was a big no-no. So you know where they fled to so they could like live? They fled to South Bend, Indiana. Yeah, Indiana's like a racist bastion state, apparently.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm not here for this. I'm not here for this slander of my home because we're not a racist people. We just like sports. That's really all there is to it. We don't like Angel Reese because she's unlikable. The WNBA wanted equality and they got it. Angel Reese is now living Draymond Green's life. It's as simple as that.
Right. And like, for example, like at WNBA Zodiac T says, quote, a black woman gets flagrant foul and dragged online and the black man in the room calls her hateful. You're not protecting women. You're protecting the system that profits off her pain. I'm sorry.
What?
Angel Reese.
That wasn't even a flagrant foul. That's the softest flagrant foul I think I've ever seen.
Right, is Angel
have you
Reese
seen the highlight reel, the clips of all the flagrants that Caitlin Clark took last year from all the players that didn't want to see her succeed because they felt threatened by her? Come on now.
Yeah. So okay. So Angel Reese right now she's making $75,000 a year. Now I'm sure when you add on endorsements and stuff, that raises into the six digits. Like, yeah, maybe not making NBA money, but like, I mean, I think she's doing well for herself, you know.
But I think all this backlash is just, I have this feeling that the basketball media, especially the WNBA media, is the point's like, darn it, it's not fair that the best player maybe ever in the league is white. That's what I'm getting with all that hate.
100%. And the reason that people are saying this, Gus, is because people realize she's better than Asia Wilson. Asia Wilson was supposed to be the best player that the league has ever seen. And now Caitlin Clark's breathing down her neck, and Caitlin Clark's been in the league for a season and one game. And she's already more popular. She has not had as much success, but she is as good a player and already more popular and has brought more eyes to the league than Asia Wilson did. And honestly, I think it's as simple as that. And you're right, Gus. It is. It's a race thing, and it doesn't need to be a race thing, but it is. And they see they see this white girl and this black girl having this rivalry in college, and people are, building it up from the get-go that, oh, it's black versus white. It's nose to the grind versus in your face villain, antics. And to a degree, the second one is true, because Caitlin Clark, like, she doesn't really play into the rivalry a lot. She just plays basketball and does that. Angel Reese does everything but play basketball. And
I will say this though, I
she's
think
really
for
good at
Angel
being a
Reese,
villain.
I mean, for Angel Reese, though, frankly, it's good for her business, if we're being honest, because otherwise, like, no one would be talking about Angel Reese if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark and her
100%.
being
If Caitlin Clark, if she doesn't beat Caitlin Clark in the national championship game in, what was that, 2022, or 23, whenever that was, she doesn't go in the first round because she's not that good.
Yeah.
People were talking about, oh, she's rookie of the year. Bitch, she was not even the best rookie on her team last year. Camila Cardoso was way better.
Freaking
am I racist because I think a different black girl is better than that black girl? Come on now.
And a Brazilian.
Cardoso, the girl who got Kelly Harper fired for failing to cover her in the SEC tournament. What a legend, Camila Cardoso. I was gonna say, but it's
I
just
want to say one thing really quick. I got called a racist for being a fan of the Indiana Fever. First of all, sorry that I was born white in Indiana, for one. But two, my favorite player growing up, because I had two favorite players. One was Reggie Miller. You know who my other favorite player was growing up?
Tamika
Catchings.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nick, can you? I think I've forgotten. Can you remind me what color her skin was, please?
She was an African American who played her ball at the University of Tennessee under the legendary Pat Summitt, and then had a legendary career with the Indiana Fever,
and brought a basketball championship to my hometown.
Yeah, and I'll just say this: like, this all feels like the last remnants of the nonsense we have been fed over the past couple of years, just socially. And I don't want to go into just full on politics mode, but it's just like the stuff that happened about 5 years ago and what that did to racial discourse in terms of like, oh, certain groups can't be racist. I mean, the whole thing was just nonsense, right? Like, anyone has the capability of being racist. Like, I mean, the idea that like I couldn't be racist is crazy. Like, there's some people who would argue that I can't be racist because I am black, but it's just like that's not true. Like, anyone has the capability of doing that, and that's some of the arguments, and that's some of the backbone of what we're seeing in this discussion, and that goes beyond this rivalry. That's just one of the big things that's holding America back is this mindset.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know where to begin with it, because ultimately, I'm seeing things about Dewana Bonner, for instance. Like, these people that are running their mouths about Fever fans are talking, oh, well, they booed you, they cussed your name, last year. Why are you embracing Fever fans? I'm sorry, have you ever watched sports? Home team fans cheer for home team and boo other team. Oh, player from other team joins your team? Okay, you like them now. That's sports. That's how that works.
It's like, was I racist when I didn't like, Derrick Henry in college, but I loved him in the NFL?
Yeah. Like, I mean, ultimately, Angel Reese is not disliked because she's black or because she's a woman. She's disliked because she has played into the villain role and she has embraced being disliked. And to your point, Nick, it's great for her brand. It gets her the attention that she needs to grow her brand, and she's done it very, very well.
And like, honestly, if she would just like own it, I would totally respect it, because the WNBA needs a villain.
Yeah, I compared her to Draymond Green earlier because she's hated like Draymond Green. But see, Draymond Green plays into it. He's like, all right, everybody hates me, cool. Or like Denny Hamlin for the NASCAR folks among us. If you embrace being hated, cool. The problem that I have with Angel Reese is not that she just tries to completely undermine everything that people praise Caitlin Clark for, although that does annoy me to a very high degree. But what the one thing more than anything else that she does that's infuriating is she plays the villain until it's time to shit or get off the pot, and then tries to be the good guy. No, just be the villain. Reggie Miller was the villain. People love him. It's when you do this flip-flop bullshit that makes people not like you. If you want to be the villain, just be the fucking villain. It's that simple. Just be the villain. That's okay. You don't have to be liked, but when you try to get people to like you, even though you're doing this villain crap, that makes people think you're a hypocrite. And that's why people don't like her. Yeah. Are you in or are you out? Be the villain or don't. Pick a side. It's that simple.
Yeah, but I will say, to kind of steer this conversation back to just basketball, the Fever did blow out this guy. It looked really, really good doing it. I mean, Jason, do you think, how much better is this Fever team this year going to be compared to what we saw last year? Because obviously last year they started off really rough, got themselves going throughout the season, ended up making the playoffs. Does this team have what chance does this team have to actually make noise in the playoffs this year?
12 of 10. The chance is incredibly high. This team is miles above what it was last year, and it's because everybody saw Caitlin Clark play and was like, oh, crap, I want to play with her. And so the Fever now have 5 all WNBA selections that are now starting in the starting 5. And so, I mean, where's Tom Thibodeau when you need him? I need to just play the straight starting 5 all game because they're going to run rampant on everybody. This team is every bit as good as or better than every other team in the league, including Las Vegas, who everybody says is the cream of the crop. Asia Wilson is great. Caitlin Clark is as good and has a better cast around her.
I mean, to me, the other team that would compete, at least off the top of my head, would be the Liberty with Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. But those two are probably going to have to play just lights out.
Yeah, look, I respect the hell out of both of those players. I think they're both terrific. The Fever are just better. The Fever with the additions made, when you factor in everything plus just the greatness of Caitlin Clark facilitating all of this, I mean, you gotta remember, Caitlin Clark is being called the Steph Curry of the WNBA. Remember how dominant Steph Curry was, especially when people found out, oh, that kid's pretty good, let's go play with him? Yeah, that's kind of what's happening.
Right. I mean, and she's doing stuff that we really haven't seen from anyone outside of, like, Cheryl Miller. So.
Oh, and she's already better than Cheryl Miller. That's really saying something, too, because Cheryl Miller is a terrific basketball player, a champion, an Olympic gold medalist, Hall of Famer.
And so far ahead of her time. Like, if Cheryl Miller had modern training, like, could she have been as good, if not better, than what we're seeing from CC?
I mean, you could make that case for a lot of players. I don't think it's fair. I don't think that's a fair comparison, but let me tell you this. When Reggie Miller, a Hall of Fame NBA player, he is the single best player to never win an NBA championship. In my view, and in the view of many. Says
it's either him or Charles Barkley. It's
right. And I mean, take your pick. At worst, he's the second best. When that guy tells you the best player he ever played against was Cheryl Miller, that's all you need to hear. That's all the respect I need to put on her name. If you've ever watched Reggie Miller shoot and see the sky-high arc on his three-point shot, and for the Gen Zs watching, go watch on YouTube. Go watch Reggie Miller highlights because you don't understand how Reggie Miller was him. All right, but when you look at how high that shot goes and how smooth it is, He credits one person for that, and it's Cheryl. Cheryl Miller was the best competitor he ever faced. That's all the respect you need to put on Cheryl Miller's name. I mean, ultimately, that is what it is. And now, Nick, I think that, if she had modern training, maybe. But I don't want to get lost in the sauce here. Cheryl Miller is one of the greatest to ever do it. Caitlin Clark is looking already like she's one of the greatest to ever do it also. And I don't want to compare eras. I don't want to compare this or that. I just want to see what this era has for Caitlin Clark. And right now, it's looking like the world is in her hands. This league is in her hands. And she is to women's basketball what Mike Trout should have been to baseball.
Yeah. And I think ultimately Otani ended up being for baseball in terms of like superstardom and, especially in terms of like international superstardom. So in any case, though, WNBA is going to be super exciting. I do want to move on to baseball because we are now reaching the postseason.
And with that, I'm out.
Yeah, unless a miracle happens, we're not repeating. But hey, I mean, we want to look. At the end of the day, even though as this season has been disappointing, especially the second half of conference play, we still are the defending national champions. It was going to be hard to fully replicate what this team did last year, but I definitely didn't see us losing the last 5 series in SEC play. I mean, that's just just really disappointing how this team has played down the stretch. But hey, new season. You wash your hands of the regular season. We're now going to Hoover. The Vols are an 8 seed. They will play either Bama or Missouri. I mean, looking at the latest projections right now, the Vols aren't even going to host a regional, which is mind-boggling. Like, midway through the conference play, we were talking about being the number 1 overall seed again. And we're going to be a 2 seed somewhere unless you go on a run in Hoover. But, at this point, I mean, is it even worth wasting the arms this week? Whatever arms we have. I mean, I also have Liam Doyle, who shot out SEC Pitcher of the Year. But outside of Liam Doyle, I mean, the rest
he was robbed of National Pitcher of the Year, by the way. Robbed.
Yeah. Well, who won the National Pitcher of the Year?
Some dude from North Carolina who threw for a similar number of innings and half the number of strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, and Liam Doyle has been just a man on an island this year. I mean, as I said, I've made this comparison before. Liam Doyle for the Vols this year is what Chase Burns was last year for Wake Forest.
100%.
One great.
That's a very apt comparison, and I think the team comparison checks out as well. This year's Tennessee team is a lot like last year's Wake Forest team. Capable, but not good enough.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, just this week, I don't expect them to go past Thursday. I mean, they could win Wednesday, but they're not going past Thursday. And we'll just see where they get selected. I mean, it's going to be like 2 years ago, I think, where they have to travel somewhere. Now, that team magically got it together and made it to Omaha. So, I mean, this NCAA baseball tournament, it is strange. And, the only reason why, I still think the Vols have a shot to make Omaha is this tournament is just that chaotic, right? And but at the same time, we just haven't seen the consistency at all. The bullpen isn't very good. And the defense is just horrific. So many errors that you don't normally see it from a Tony Vitello team, but we're seeing it this year. And it's ever since we got bitch slapped by Texas A&M on a doubleheader, we've completely lost our identity.
And sometimes that's all it takes. However, these issues were prevalent before Texas A&M. They just got exposed against Texas A&M. And I think the problem is not the arms. I think our arms are perfectly capable. They're not the best in the country. I mean, Liam Doyle is. But outside of him, it's pretty average. But all you need is pretty average if your lineup is as good as Tennessee's is. Because this team can put 10 runs on anybody. The problem is the defense. When you are having to get 30, 35 outs a game instead of the 27, you're given 3-4 outs a game at least away. That's a problem. That puts your pitchers in a really bad spot.
And Jason, like, what do you think is causing that? Because all these dudes have such talent, and they've obviously to be at Tennessee with under Vital, they have to have so much talent. What is causing the defensive issues, especially from like Dean Curley, who was a preseason All-American?
It's mental. It's all mental. And when you are looking at Ariel Antigua, who is the best defensive shortstop in the country, committing errors, it's mental. One guy, Dean Curley, had some issues, and it cost us versus Louisiana State about a month ago. He had 2 that cost us game 1 against LSU. And since then, it's been nonstop. Defensive errors and lapses and having to get 30, 31, 32 outs a game has been the norm. It's mental.
Yeah, it's almost like
this team's just got to clean up defensively and we're fine.
It's like we have to almost like pull an Ohio State in football, right? Like when after this week in Hoover, we just got to go into a dark room and snap clear.
Yeah,
like,
and 100%. That's exactly right. And ultimately, this team is good enough to win a championship. I don't think they're good enough to be favorites to win a championship like last year. I don't think the pitching is that good. I think the lineup is that good. I think if you can put 10 on anybody on any given day, you're in the hunt. And I think with a guy who can basically win you every single game he starts in Liam Doyle, that's a really, really, really strong platform to launch from in a baseball tournament. However, with that said, you have to play defensively lights out. That's the one thing that made us so unbeatable last year. We didn't give up free outs. How many errors do you remember from that entire tournament last year, Nick?
I could probably count them on one hand.
I remember one, and it wasn't even a defensive error. It was a balk. And you know the one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember a defensive error until the Combs balk in the bottom of the 9th in game 3. The fact that you don't even remember any of those, or that I don't even remember any of those, or Gus doesn't remember any of those, is very telling.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the story. It was, they weren't prevalent enough that they became a problem. And ultimately, as a baseball guy, like, I want to just go out there and smack the shit out of somebody. Like, dude, just play defense. And Tony Vitello, 100%. That's exactly what he's saying. Like, ultimately, you just got to play good defense and let the chips fall. Because this team can beat anybody in any park. The pitching is good enough, and the lineup is awesome. This lineup is better than any 2 lineups put together elsewhere in the country. And I mean that. Top to bottom, it is loaded.
And to me, it's like you don't have like a Christian Moore leader in the locker room. And I think you can tell that they don't have a Christian Moore and they don't have a Kirby Connell, like guys who have been there, done that. And it's just like,
yeah.
You're
right. And it's those type of guys who are able to stop this when it happens. Like, say, after the Friday night game against LSU, where it went to like 4 a.m. because of the storm delay. It's games like that where you rebound and you have a guy like Christian Moore or whoever say, look, shit happens. Get it right tomorrow. And we're fine. But when you don't have that leadership, you panic. And when you panic, it snowballs. And that's what's happened. This year, the guy with the most experience on that defense is Gavin Keelan. And Gavin is terrific. He played 2 years at Louisville. I have seen him play. He is excellent at what he does. He is a terrific baseball player. But he's in his first year at the program, and respectfully to Gavin, he's not on that level where he's just commanding respect as soon as he gets into the locker room. And when you don't have a guy like that, to your point, Nick, it really does snowballing quickly, and that's what's happening. And I think this team can make a run. I think I would take Tennessee over anybody whose regional we would be in. I would take Tennessee over
What I saw
just
today
about
was
any super
Georgia
regional that
Tech
we'd be in.
yesterday.
Do what?
That's the one I saw would be Georgia Tech in Atlanta.
Dude, that's a home game for Tennessee.
Heck, I would have to go because it would be cheaper for me to go to a Georgia Tech game than to go to Knoxville.
Yeah, that's a home series for Tennessee. I'm not even worried about that. So assume that we win that. Do you have the projection in front of you, Nick?
No, I have to pull it up on D1, but
because if you win in Atlanta, you're going to move on and you're going to play on the road again in a super, and you're probably going to play in a super against a team like Vanderbilt.
Okay, so what they have
a
is
team like Coastal Carolina.
So what they would have is if Tennessee were to beat Georgia Tech, we would then be paired probably with at Texas.
Okay, that's a winnable series.
And like
I think Texas is one of the best teams in the country, but so is Tennessee if Tennessee is playing well. So,
yeah, like some poor team is going to get Tennessee as their 2 seed, or get like Texas A&M as their 2 seed. Well, actually, I don't see Texas A&M in here at all.
A&M's not making the postseason.
Well, they were surging like a month ago, but I guess they fell apart again.
They gotta win this SEC tournament in Hoover to get in.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't put it past them to do that. I really wouldn't.
I mean, they're in desperation mode. I mean, they got to.
Can you put the D1 projections up on the screen, Nick? Let's go through this real quick and make some picks.
Yeah. And granted, this time next week we'll have like the actual bracket.
Sure, but let's go through it and talk some hypotheticals, because about this time last year we were talking about how I think this team could go all the way, and for the first time, do what?
I was just asking Gus to pull up this D1. I'm sharing the screen here. All right, so you see that top. You see where Tennessee's at in the top 8 there.
So Tennessee would be the number 1 overall 2 seed.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say if we somehow made it to like the weekend, I think we would be hosting somewhere. I think we would host. Probably.
And see, in this particular projection, Nick, I'm not even certain Texas wins their own regional. Dallas Baptist is a really, really strong number 2 that I do not want people to overlook. Dallas Baptist is one of the best baseball teams in the country. They deserve to host. They are the number 32 overall seed in this tournament. That's criminal. Dallas Baptist is better than that. And they're going to show it against Texas in that regional. They may not win it, but they're going to make it really, really difficult for Texas to win it.
Yeah. Real quick, just what do you think about this 8 down here, the Arkansas TCU?
Give me Arkansas, although Wright State will probably make a little bit of noise. TCU is going to run rampant in that. I'd take Arkansas over TCU, though.
All right. What about, because you got Louisville Vandy here, and you got Ole Miss Southern Miss.
Don't count out Roland Fanning's Austin P. Govs in that Nashville regional either. Austin P. could beat Vandy. Austin P. could beat Louisville. Austin P. baseball is not a joke. With that said, I think Louisville would win that. Louisville beat Vanderbilt already this season. Louisville has beaten Vanderbilt in Nashville before in a regional or super regional. I don't remember which. Give me Louisville out of the Nashville regional, and gut reaction is Ole Miss wins the Hattiesburg regional.
Yeah, although it'd be hilarious if your other alma mater also had to go to Hattiesburg.
It would be something. But we do know there's an Applebee's nearby, so there's that.
Yes.
But
What about this North Carolina UCLA?
Florida. Give me Florida in the Chapel Hill Regional. North Carolina's frauds. UCLA is pretty decent. That regional is a bunch of scrubs. That's the worst regional by far. UCLA, UC Irvine, Virginia, and UC University of San Diego. All of those 4 teams, whoever makes it out of that's getting curb stomped by Florida.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick. This area right here, Georgia, Clemson.
Shit. Wake Forest and Clemson.
All right, Auburn and Florida State.
Florida State and Auburn.
The LSU, Coastal Carolina.
Coastal and LSU, I think.
And they got Oregon and Oregon State.
So this is my favorite one because both Oregon and Oregon State are going to win, and Oregon State's going to go into Eugene and curb stomp Oregon.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Also, so okay, and we're kind of running up on time here real quick, so I'm going to kind of bullet point these real quick. Softball, they're going to the Supers. They're going to play Nebraska, so good luck to them. All hell, Carlin Pickens. Real quick, Gus, who's your Indy 500 pick? You're and Jason. Yeah, I really meant to
go Jason first. I mean, he is our Indy 500 specialist.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't call me an enthusiast. I'm a fan. Shit. Man, shout out to Robert Schwartzman, first of all. That was unbelievable. Give me Scotty McLaughlin. I think this is his year in Indy.
Give me Pato Award. I don't know. I just have a feeling. Why not? Avenge yourself, Pato.
Hey, if it's if it's a year for firsts, I think Pato Awards has got as good a shot as any.
Yeah. Real quick.
And he's being mentored by Brazilian driving legend Tony Kanaan. How can we not be
I'm going with him then.
Also, real quick, Stanley Cup picks. We have Panthers, Hurricanes in the East, Maple Leafs, brother. Oh my God. What in the world was that Game 7? Disaster.
I mean, it's so funny. They're the ultimate chokers of North American sports.
Yeah, like, I don't know if it's ever going to happen for Toronto, man. Because they're going to have to blow up that core now. Ugh. But Panthers...
Look, as soon as they got beat by their own Zamboni driver, they were in trouble.
Yeah. Panthers, Hurricanes, though. East, and I believe this is the second straight year we have Panthers, Hurricanes in the East.
Panthers.
Yeah, I'll go Panthers as well. The Stars did take out Winnipeg. The curse of the President's Cup lives on. Stars and Oilers in the West.
Gut says Dallas, but I think it's going to be the Oilers. I think this is the year Connor McDavid wins it.
I would agree. Give me the Oilers. I think it's going to be Oilers-Panthers rematch. And the Canadians finally get the Stanley Cup back home to Edmonton, which everyone in Toronto is going to be sobbing their eyes out. Also, just real shout out while we still have Jason. We're going to be at Indy 11, One Knox SC on Saturday.
Nice.
Good time. You know, I'm no expert on either squad, so I'm just there for the vibes.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. I wish to be with you guys because watching this new true pro team in Knoxville facing really important team in the USL in the 11. I mean, what a game. I'll try to watch here from Americana.
And I'm so excited to finally go and see the new Smoky Stadium as well, Covenant Health Park.
It'll be a full circle moment for the two of us, Nick, because you and I, were making content there for various things when it was just an industrial rundown dump.
Exactly. And for me, obviously, with Chattanooga about to get their own stadium, it's going to be a little instructive field trip for me just to kind of see how their stadium looks. So I know what to expect this time next year when we have our own new stadium. So I'm very, very excited.
And I'm bringing you the same jersey you wore to Atlanta last year. We need that magic back.
Yeah, we're gonna go make it 2-0. Um, Absolutely. And the last thing in America I was going to bring up was Coke 600 this week too. Best day of racing. I mean, it's also Monaco, but
I want a reverse double. Let Scotty Mack drive NASCAR. That
yes,
dude came from supercars. He could probably run the Coke 600.
man, Kyle Larson, if he could pull it off, I mean, I don't think he's going to win the Indy 500. I mean, he was running, Verge top 10, but that's just IndyCar is a hard sport just to come into. Even for someone as talented as Kyle Larson. Now, he could definitely win the Coke 600 100%. I will say this also, I am excited that Amazon Prime has taken over this week for Fox because Fox has been an absolute abject disaster. They've put on the worst broadcasting product I have ever seen in major American sports. What they did to the All-Star race last night was atrocious because it was actually a good race. Like, I enjoyed the race. It was by far the best race they've had so far in North Wilkesboro. And literally, there was a point for a 10-lap period where half the screen was the race and half the screen was watching Michael Waltrip in the flag stands. Be like, ooh, when is he going to wave the caution? Woo! I'm like, this is a sport where people have died. It's intense. These dudes have worked their entire lives to get to this point, and we're treating it like a freaking joke. And like, you don't see NBC do this. I hope to God that Amazon Prime and TNT don't do this, but Fox just turns it into an absolute joke every single time. And I've had enough of NASCAR on Fox. It is an absolute disgrace. And from the little I've seen so far, Fox IndyCar, like IndyCar doesn't let Fox do that crap to them. So why does
IndyCar will just straight pull the deal? They'll be like, "Fuck y'all, we're out."
Exactly. Like, like it's gonna be. I'm gonna watch the Indy 500 be presented in a completely serious manner. Although I'm gonna be sad it's not Lee Diffie on the call, but this other guy does sound pretty. I don't know what his name is, but you still have who are the two analysts? It's Bell and
they got Townsend and James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, that's who I was looking for, Hinchcliffe, because it's the same two from NBC. So, and obviously those two are just awesome. But I do also get Dale Jr. back in the booth this week, and I am more than happy about that because we didn't have Dale Jr. at all last year. So I am pumped. And Dale Jr. is by far the best NASCAR analyst since Benny Parsons. So,
R.I.P. to BP.
Yes, rest in peace to BP. But frankly, the Coca-Cola 600 though has since with this new car has been the best race in NASCAR every single year. It's been an awesome race because this car has excelled the best on 1.5-mile tracks, and Charlotte is the best 1.5-mile track. So let's just hope for good weather this time. It seems like right now Sunday looks good in both Indy and Charlotte. Let's hope that stays. So let's just pray for good weather because obviously we got more bad weather coming through tomorrow, and after that we should be good. So, in any case, Gus, I know it's been a long show. I know it's late. What's going on in Brazil?
In Brazil, pretty much Palmeiras still dominating, but the question is how they're gonna look after they lose their biggest star of the year, Estevão, because Jason, I mean, you're a Chelsea fan, you should be excited. I saw him live yesterday. He's like 30% to 40% of Palmeiras team. He's good on set pieces. He's good on corner kicks. He has the agility, the dribbling. I mean, and he's also a nice guy who took a picture with me. So I'm all for it. But Palmeiras still leading the Brazilian championship. It looked like they were going to lose the first place because Red Bull Bragantino was winning in the first half. But Palmeiras teams, when they always look trouble, they found ways to win games. That's what they do. And 2-1, they are leading the Brazilian Championship, Brazilian Cup, third round, second legs. I don't believe there's going to be any upsets. And last but not least, the Brazilian Football Confederation, Brazilian Soccer Confederation, has a new president, Samir Shaoud. And nobody knows anything about him because he was the president of the Roraima Soccer Confederation, which is like, how can I compare this? Like the U.S. Soccer Federation choose the Wyoming Soccer Federation to be the president. Like it's politics. It's that's how they do it. Hopefully, he'll have a mindset that bring stability and keep Carlo Ancelotti, and hopefully Brazil will be at least competitive in the next World Cup. But that's it for Brazilian.
No, it's not. The hell it is. I need 10 seconds, Gus.
Okay,
Here's
okay,
my contribution to Brazilian sports. I don't think I've ever
okay,
contributed to Brazilian
okay.
sports.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'm curious.
Carlo Ancelotti will be leading Brazil to the World Cup in 2026, and he will be leading them to victory in the World Cup in
Oh,
2026. Carlo Ancelotti is the best thing to happen to the Brazilian national team ever. And I'm planting my flag. Brazil's winning it next summer.
I mean, I have a theory. It will all line up because Brazil, the last time Brazil had a major drought, like they are currently have, was between 1970 and 1994, where the 1994 World Cup took place, United States. So, and the same amount of years, 24 years back then, 24 years now. Just saying.
You and I had this conversation a while back, Gus, and then Ancelotti ended up not coming. But I told you that if he came, he would make Brazil immediately into the best national team on the planet. I still believe that. The Brazilian talent is unbelievable. This new generation of kids coming through, unreal. Now, if they
But
can find somebody that can put ball in net that is better than Joe and Fred, they're in business.
Yeah, Vini Jr.
and I want to ask you to wrap up the pod. I want to ask you guys a question. What are your opinion? What is your take? So on Sunday, Santos lost again 1-0 to Corinthians in the city of São Paulo. At the same city, at the same time, Neymar, which is currently a Santos player but is injured, was watching a Kings League final in the same city. I was mad because I feel like this was such a disrespect because I feel like he was in the same city as his team. Well, and he, instead of going to support his teammates, his team being there, he instead chose to watch another sporting event and support another team. I know it's not the same competition, but I feel like he was chanting and celebrating while his team was losing again, struggling in the relegation zone.
Neymar being bigger than the club, never heard that one before.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're on a retirement tour, But like as I said, Neymar all will be forgiven if he can be a part of a World Cup
Yeah,
squad next year.
yeah, I agree.
Well, he won't be like the central part of it, like it was in like 20.
He's going to be Brazil's James Johnson. If you know, you know.
Yes, yeah, just it's gonna be fast. I can't wait for 2026 World Cup, and hey, the 2025 Club World Cup is not far behind. And pretty soon we'll have some New Zealanders running around Chattanooga here for a few weeks. So I'm excited about that as well. Auckland City FC coming to stay in Chattanooga while they compete. And I'm being honest, I don't feel like they're going to go very far. They got to play like Bayern Munich and Boca Juniors. They're probably
the combined score between those games are going to be about 37-0.
Yeah, they're just going to be happy to be here. I think.
Yeah.
I hope they live it up, have a good time. Maybe I can go out and party with them or something. But yeah, we can talk about Lord. There we go. The best product from New Zealand. But in any case, that's all the time we have for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here. Very late. It's really May 20th at this point. For Gus Tomazelli, for Jason Warwick, I'm Nick Hill. Thank you so much. Have a great Memorial Day weekend if you're in the United States.